Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Thriving Talk. Hope you have been enjoying the last episodes. This is another Dadson edition in which me, Ting, gets a chance to ask my dad, Tinku Thompson, questions. How are you doing today, Dad?
I'm doing good, and I'm glad that we are having this Thriving Talk once again after a few weeks of break. So I look forward to this.
Just a question. How is your health these days as an update for the viewers?
I'm doing much better. If some of our listeners have remember a few months ago, I have shared about my journey through leukemia and some health issues I had last year. So I'm getting much better now. There are still some medications going on, but overall things are looking and going in the right direction. So I'm so thankful to God for the healing and everything which He has given to me. So yeah, it's getting much better nowadays.
A quick reminder to all our listeners, Thriving Talk is available on major platforms like iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and more. So today we are going to talk about having good habits in life. So I want to start off very simple. What is a good habit?
Okay, that's a good question. Good habits. We all hear about habits, right? I'm reminded of a quote which I saw many years ago. There are a few people who are attributed as the author of this quote, but so that's the reason I'm not going to quote anyone, because I could not find who was the original or who's the person who originally said this. Anyway, but this quote is very relevant. It says like this: sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. So basically what that means is, it all starts with our thought, then goes to actions, which will manifest itself, or which will help us to develop habits in life. And those habits actually is what will help us to develop our character, and that character will ultimately lead us to our final destiny, or what we are going to reap in finally, right? So why good habits is, if your habits are bad, let's start with your thoughts are bad, your actions are bad, your habits are bad, your character is bad, everything goes in the negative or opposite direction. But if you have good habits, there is a lot of good things which will come out of it. You will have a good character and you will reap a destiny. And so I think a good habit is consistently doing things which are good, which you should be doing, and which are beneficial for others, and not like randomly or once in a while, but having that consistency and that becoming a habit. When do you say something is a habit, right? So when you are able to do it. For example, let me give a simple example. If somebody has this habit of waking up in the morning and making their bed, and if that is a habit without anybody telling them or without anybody asking them, that would be something they will do every day, right? But if somebody has to tell and ask you to do that again and again, if somebody doesn't ask, you don't do it. It's not a habit. It's just something you are forcefully doing. So when we talk about habits needs to be developed. Yeah. And good habits are very important to, that we develop those things in our life, because that has an impact on our character, our behavior, and different things.
So how do we develop a good habit?
Yes, so how do you develop a good habit? So first of all, a lot of people fail. You hear about New Year resolutions and people making a lot of decisions. I have heard about how the membership in fitness clubs, gyms, etc., goes up at the beginning of the year, and then January 10, 15 comes, or like it goes like this. You go on the first week of January, it will be full of people. But come second week, third week, it will go back to the old ways. There will not be a lot of people because people will stop going there. I would say that developing good habit needs to be tied back to the purpose of life. We did an episode on purpose of life. And then the thing is, what do you want to accomplish with your life? You have to have a realization that, okay, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to do with my time? What am I going to achieve in this world? And then you are going to basically look at things from that perspective, because that will give you the motivation even to be consistent and persistent with what you're trying to do. Other thing is, in a habit, you need consistency. Somebody has said, if you do something for 27 days, somebody has said 60 days. The key is, it can vary from people to people. The key is you have to do something on a consistent basis to develop that as part of your life. Because if you don't do that consistently, then it cannot be developed in your life. And once that habit is developed, what happens is, automatically you start doing it. It becomes very easy for you to do it. You don't forget about it.
Okay.
All those things can happen. I'll give you one example. If somebody has this habit of brushing their teeth before they go to bed, and if that's a habit, they will not be able to go to bed without doing that, if that's a real habit, because before they go to bed, they will realize that, they will know that they are missing something, and they will automatically go and do that. So that's that way. You have to spend time to develop good habits. Now, since you asked this question about how to develop good habits, I want to give you some tips about why it is important and what support system you will need. First of all, I would say that you have to have positive thoughts, good thoughts in your mind. So in the quote I said earlier, it said about sow a thought, you will reap an action, sow an act, and you will reap a habit, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, you need to have good positive thoughts. I would say when you wake up in the morning, you can have, Bible actually talks about something called as renewing your mind. Romans 12, 2 says, don't copy the behavior and the customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person. By changing the way you think, then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. So basically, we need to be transformed, right? So it is important that we have good thoughts. Then you have to stay in good community, which encourages you. You can't be in bad company, because bad company can always take you down the lane which you don't want to go. But a good community, which is people who have purpose for their life, who are consistent, who is going to really help, in that sense, from an external factor. Other thing I want to tell you, do not be worried about tomorrow. And Bible actually tells us that we should not be worried. I will bring one more verse from the Bible. Philippians 4 verses 6 says, chapter 4 verse 6, don't worry about anything, instead pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done, right? So what that means is you can't have, habits if you are worrying and if you are thinking about tomorrow and if you are really in that mode. But it is very important that you focus on what you have to do today. And that's the only way you can build consistency into your life. So don't worry about things which are out of your control or which is out of what you can manage. And be thankful for what you have. Okay. And sometimes we are more thinking about what we don't have and not thinking too much about what we have. So sometimes you have to reflect on what we have and be thankful about it. And then, of course, you can also, see how you can brighten someone else's life, because that really motivates you. Some of the habits, if it is of helping someone, that can really be of help. So I know I answered a little long here for your question, but so in order to, before going into any of the steps or anything, I just wanted to put that general perspective that once you find a purpose and if you have a goal in life and if you want to achieve something in life, that's a starting point for developing good habits in life.
Do you have some examples of people from the Bible, or like who people who had habits that helped them?
Well, you asked me from the Bible, so yeah, there are people who had good habits, like Jesus.
Yeah.
You see that Jesus had a very strong prayer life, in the sense like he used to spend time in prayer. Once Jesus started the ministry, you see that very consistently Jesus was sharing the good news with people. You may say, okay, is that a habit? Yeah, because in one way, because that was the purpose with which he was doing, and he was very consistently doing that, right? But I want to bring to your attention somebody who had a very consistent prayer life. That's Daniel. If you remember about Daniel, he had a habit of praying 3 times. Maybe he prayed more, but 3 times habit was there when he would open up his window towards Jerusalem and he will pray. And, when you read in the book of Daniel, we see that some people who were not happy with him or who opposed him tried to trick him by, and wanted to, really harm him. So they went to the king, and long story short, they made a law that nobody is going to pray to anyone else, but just they are going to pray to the king for the next, 30 days or so. So what happens in that scenario is Daniel basically goes and continues to do what he was doing. He was continuing to pray the way he was doing. So we see a lot of consistency in his life, and we also see that he was rescued and delivered from the situation by the supernatural hand of God. So what I'm trying to say is, good habits not only helps you, with day-to-day things, but it can also, be a source of God's hand being coming in your life too. Especially if we have to keep up our life strong spiritually, we need to have good spiritual habits in life, like prayer, reading the Bible, and spiritual disciplines that needs to be very consistently managed or maintained in life. And then if you want to develop something, learn something, you need to have, like for example, if you want to learn an instrument and you are enrolled in a class, and the only time you touch the instrument is when you go to class, it's not going to happen. You may learn some things, but you're never going to be a good player unless you develop a habit of practicing on a regular basis. So those are the things I would say. You can find a lot of other examples too, but yes, we do have examples of people who had very good habits, and they were very successful in life.
Okay. So can you share some of the habits that you have developed, and how has it helped you?
Yeah, that's a personal question. Yes, absolutely. I would say that this is going to be a little long answer, so be ready for that. Yes, I have been a student of this for a long time. I think we did an episode on staying productive, right? Yeah. In that I have spoken about some of the tools and other things I use and things like that. But overall, I feel like I will come back to the thing I said in the beginning, the purpose of life, and what do you want to achieve with your life? What is the goal of life? So that's where I start off, and normally I have few things which are very much important on a daily basis I need to do, and then there are other things I need to do on a weekly basis, and there are certain things I need to do on a monthly basis. So there is a lot of things in our life which needs to be done consistently, and if we don't do it consistently, then it becomes irrelevant, or it goes off. I will give you a good example is, okay, let me start with some things which you need to do, which I was referring earlier to. It's important that we develop spiritual habits in life. So spiritual habits like prayer, right, and reading the word. So one way to look at it is, people may say, you can pray anytime, and you can read the Bible anytime. Like you may say, oh, is it important to read the Bible before I go to school, or I can come back and read the Bible? Is it important to pray in the morning and all those things, right?
Yeah.
But I will tell you that by nature, we don't stick unless we have that habit. So there is a high chance that if you don't, if you're not intentional, if you don't set apart time, and if you have not developed it as a habit, you are going to skip it. For example, you say that, okay, I'm going to pray and read the Bible whenever I get some time. I guarantee you that you won't get time. And so it is very important. And I will tell you my personal experience with reading the Bible is, if you don't read it consistently, then you lose interest, you lose that appetite for it, right? So, but if you're reading it, you feel like reading it, and you will feel the benefit of it, and your mindset and everything is set in the right way, so you benefit it. And that if once it becomes a habit, it's not a challenge to do it. You don't feel like, okay, why am I doing it? Or, okay, this is a drudgery type of a deal to read. So it is very important that you pick up a time and you pick up a schedule when you will do it every day consistently. And you will slowly find that after some time, this becomes part of your life, right? So in the same way, there are other things. For example, if you are somebody who wants to read, books, I know you will read, but there are other people who may struggle with that. So, like me, I have a lot of books I wanted to read, but then the problem is I have so many things going on that I will never find time to actually take apart time and sit and read. So one thing which I have personally done is I have something called as everyday read little. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 15 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, depending on the day and the time I have. But it is very important for me that I at least read for 5 minutes minimum, or at least open up a book and read a little bit. So what that does is there is a consistency, and there is a better chance that I do not miss reading it. I do not forget reading it, and because I'm reading it often, there is always a desire for me to read it every day. So that's another way. So sometimes you cannot do everything like for a long time. You cannot be like really be able to do everything 1 hour a day or something. But even doing it little bit is going to really help you to come long way in this matter. So my encouragement is that whatever you want to achieve in life, you need to do. So another thing I want to tell you is we are living in a world where there is no point at which we can say we learned everything. There is always new things coming. Whichever field you are working, you need to be keeping up with things, and you need to learn. And you just can't, everybody cannot afford to like take a couple of weeks and go and learn. Some people will have, some employers may send you for some training or some things, that's good. But you need to have like consistent studying or learning in your life. So what you could do is, you could say that, okay, every week, 3 days, I'm going to spend 1 hour studying something, right? So what happens in that scenario is after, a month or so, you may have completed a course actually. While if you think that, okay, when I get like good time, I will do it, you will never do it. Yeah. So what I have found out is the key is to be consistent, even if it is small. That's the only way you can make progress in life. And otherwise, you will always be looking for a better time to start something. And then what happens is, I have seen is once you do certain things, it becomes part of your life, and then it becomes less friction to do it. You don't find it challenging to do it really. So it becomes easier, and you will be able to do it better. But let me also remind that it's important that whatever we are trying to develop in our life is good habits.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure this information is very helpful, and I really took it to heart because developing these good habits are very important.
Okay, let me just say one more thing, which is very important. I would say like this. Okay, we spoke about good habits, right? But there are also bad habits which you can develop in life. And for some reason, developing bad habits is easier than developing good habits. Do you agree with that?
True, yeah.
Yeah. So what I want to say is, we also have to make sure we identify what are those bad habits. Because when we get rid of some of the bad habits, we will be in a better place, and you will see that some good habits are going to take place. So some bad habits, we have to get rid of that in life. So we have to identify whether this is beneficial, this thing I'm doing, this habit I'm having, is it really helping me with the purpose of my life, the goals I have for my life? If it is not, get rid of it.
Okay.
Like, some people may have this habit of watching videos for a long time. Sometimes it's important to watch, but again, if you are wasting your time and that's not going to be helpful, maybe you'll have to get rid of it. You have to put some controls around that. Same way, maybe some people have this habit of talking with people for a long time for no reason, and you're wasting your time. So you may have to put some stop in that. So there are different ways you can do it, but the main thing I would say is you need to tie everything with the purpose and what you want to achieve in life, the goals of your life. Then you will know the reason why you want to develop some good habits. Otherwise, it can always be challenging. You won't have the motivation to go ahead with it.
Okay, so thank you for sharing that. And I feel like this is very helpful to develop these good habits. And to all our listeners, thank you for listening. In the coming weeks, we'll be coming back with more Dadson editions of Thriving Talk, and I'll be asking more questions. As we said in the beginning, this episode is available on many different platforms. Do not forget to follow or subscribe to the Thriving Talk podcast on your favorite platform to receive new episodes as they get released. Also, remember that my dad has a weekly newsletter now in which he shares a lot of good information. The link to the newsletter will be in the show notes. Feel free to subscribe to the newsletter. We'll be back, but until then, remember that we need to try to develop these good habits so we can reach our end goal of eternal life.
Thank you all listeners. God bless you all.